lot of you aren't surprised that I'm here today marrying Allison, the girl I met at church. This is what I assumed my parents had hoped for. This is what I had hoped for myself. Over the years, back to my childhood, I had been involved in church. I prayed the prayer. I thought I was fine. I thought I was going to heaven when I died. But my affections were in the here and now. I used drinking and drugs to escape from the difficulty and failures of reality. I was hoping to find fun and fulfillment in them, even if it was short term. Since I was in high school, I had a pattern of devoting more time to church and less time to drinking and drugs, but it never lasted more than a few months at a time. I found myself slipping back into the ways of the world and rebelling against God.
Finding my Prince Charming always seemed like in the distance for me, but to think of how my Prince Charming, James, came in my life is a story I'm blessed to share. Growing up, I was a good kid, good student, a good friend. I never wanted to do anything wrong and always tried to please others. My groups of friends were the Christians, not because of some religious manner I believed, but because they were the ones who didn't do anything wrong and accepted me. I was loud, loved to talk, always wanted to be with people, and loved me a good old party with juice boxes, cupcakes, and a board game or two. Okay, so maybe that still holds true. But what was really going wrong in my life was I thought because I was this good person that I was going to heaven. It was when I was 16 I had a wake-up call, and I needed change in my life. Though I didn't make bad choices or do the wrong things, and I made it seem like I had everything together on the outside, I was hurting on the inside. I was bitter. I was prideful, selfish. I lied to make people happy or myself happy. I had hate in my heart towards others. My life was falling apart. It was after I made the decision to move to Iowa to live with my dad when I was 16 that I then quickly found that church group to get connected to. It was on my first Sunday in Iowa that I went to church with my parents and attended youth group that morning. They had announced that they were taking a group to South Africa on an orphanage for 2 weeks to share the gospel. Now, I'd be lying if I said the whole sharing the gospel idea is what got me to sign up, but rather I saw it as another mission trip to go on with my friends and take pictures. But it was those 2 weeks that have forever changed my life. 2 weeks at an orphanage with kids who beamed with excitement for the love of Christ. I went on a 2-week trip to share the gospel, and in return, these kids showed me the relationship I needed with Christ. I returned a new person. I realized that my sin in my heart was just as wrong as the partying and bad decisions my peers were making. I was holding a heavy heart towards God's people, and I needed to surrender my sins to Him and commit my life to be lived for Him from there on out. My heart had been crumbled to pieces, and when returning back from South Africa, I knew that not the only change I needed in my life was moving to Iowa, but it was giving my whole heart to Christ.
It wasn't until I started coming around to Walnut Creek Church and being reached out to by so many men, and one of my groomsmen, Alex, he devoted so much time sharing with me what he'd been learning through reading the Bible. I was loved like a brother from the start. His life and others reflected what I knew to be the gospel as I had heard growing up. That God sent His Son Jesus, who lived a sinless life, to lay His life down for a world of people like you and me, a people who naturally want to find happiness in ourselves apart from God. Because the men around me laid down their life for me as a response of Jesus laying His life down for them, I chose to lay down my sinful ways and selfish pride and follow Jesus.
It was then after finishing college that I wound back up in Waukee, Iowa with my dad and family. I knew I needed to find a church to be involved with and get into community with. I found Walnut Creek Church through some friends and felt right at home. It was then by my Allison is a creeper skills that I found my now-to-be husband a few years later. I first spotted James standing on a far wall at the church while his best friend Tyler was on stage sharing his testimony about his life and getting ready to be baptized. Tyler was talking about how James shared the good news of the gospel with him, and that because of James's heart for his best friend to know the Lord, that Tyler was standing there today professing his love for Christ. I didn't end up ever having a conversation with James till a few months past that day, but what I heard that night and saw in a few encounters with him from there on out, I knew James had a heart to share the gospel and a love for people. Okay, and I was attracted to that smile too. So everyone knows that a way to a man's heart is through food. And I did just that. It was love at first sight through cookie cake. It may have been through cookie cake that I got James to notice me, but it's ultimately because of the decision we made to follow Christ that brought us together.
On that day that Allison approached me with the cookie cake, I was caught off guard a little bit, but I wanted to know who this fun, happy girl was. Through months of seeing her around at church and striking up a few conversations with her, I saw a woman that wanted to grow closer to God, loved people, and had a great personality. Because Allison and I have decided to have our lives be a testimony for God, the love that we share for each other is the same love that we have through example by Jesus Christ.
And that through God's unending love and grace towards us, we have found each other. And now we're married.